not that late yet. Sorry, Paula.
That's
Would
okay.
you do that again?
Yes. I will.
So you have a program that's come around over here. Not a whole lot of announcements.
I did write like these two out in a little bit longer form from what was in the newsletter. You don't have to say exactly what it says, but to kind of just highlight those a little bit more.
Thank you for pointing this out to me, yeah. Karen says she's had no response to this.
Yeah. I hope that we will. I've had some folks say it sounds interesting, but haven't. Then
It's just hard to leave you. So I was at Abundant Love last week, and on my way to Florida, and I was thinking that I would do an auction item to take people to a Sunday service. But that would mean that we would miss it here.
that's okay.
Would you be interested in being on that trip?
Depends on when it is.
Yeah, well, that's we would
Yeah.
collaborate on that
Yeah.
and choose a Sunday when you would be available if you're interested in that. So you would have first dibs on the date.
Okay. Keep that in mind. All right. I think we're at go time.
Where did it go?
It's hiding. Somebody moved it way forward.
Good morning. Welcome back, Paula and Jorge. It's good to have you back. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. We are located on the land of the Eastern Cherokee and Southern Iroquois, and good morning. It's good to be here, and it's really good to be here with you. My name is Crain. I'm your worship associate this morning. I was also the usher. I like to pay attention to, on the back of your program, the Sunday morning volunteers for the day. And you'll see next to ushers, we had no volunteer. So I stepped in. Michael Elder was surprised to step in. John Haynes is also willing to step in. So thank you. If anybody wants to stand up to be an usher, let me know and we'll put you on that list. And thank you for the rest of these volunteers who are helping with us this morning. So welcome to the UUFC. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life journey, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, wherever you were born, whatever language you speak, you are welcome here. Whatever your skin color, whatever your class background, whatever your range of abilities, you are welcome here. We are so glad that you chose our fellowship as your place of worship this morning. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. If you are a visitor and would like to stand and tell us who you are welcome to. No? We have a visitor, so watch for him. Welcome. After the service, we gather for coffee and social connection in the social room, down the hallway and to the left, so please join us. If you are interested in getting our weekly newsletter so you can get connected with our community, our weekly sharing of joys and concerns, and our collective efforts to support local social justice work, please reach out to the office by email on our website. So let me tell you a few of the announcements. I was talking to one of our visitors this morning, and he's here because of the times in which we find us, and this announcement has something to do with that. Our social justice focus for February is democracy. Mark your calendars for Sunday, February 23rd after social time for a webinar about how to advocate effectively with the South Carolina General Assembly created by the State League of Women Voters. If you want to follow bills on issues we care about, summaries will be available at the opportunity table during social time on Sunday, today. So they are available today. The webinar is February 23rd, but these legislative updates are available today. You can also sign up to join one of our 5 teams, and the teams deal with education, environment, democracy, LGBTQ+, and health, which includes Medicaid and reproductive choice. Thank you, Holly. Thank you for making all of that happen. Another announcement has to do with our religious education with our kiddos. UU Lego sources and UU Lego values. So you can use some of those pieces when you talk to your South Carolina legislators. Each week, we will use Legos as the building blocks, pun intended, to learn more about the sources of our UU faith tradition and our UU values such as pluralism, generosity, justice, and transformation. But wait, the fun isn't just for kids. You too can get in on the action. Volunteer to be an RE leader. RE, religious education. Volunteers are always welcome. I get to do that next Sunday, and I'm very, very excited. So, thank you. Welcome to UUFC. Reverend Holly.
I would like to also extend you all a warm welcome this morning. My name is Reverend Holly Brown. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the settled minister here at UUFC. I offer you these opening words this morning. For this one moment, know only that you are loved, that you are safe and whole and loved. Know that you belong here. Here among us, here upon the earth, in your body, however tired, however broken your heart may be, whatever fear, disappointment, anger you carry, for this hour, know that you are not alone. Feel the presence of others surrounding you, breathing beside you and with you. Discover together the ways our voices rise and fall. In harmony, in hope, in hope. Claim here a resilient freedom, the choice for love, for light, to live with joy and gratitude and praise as a form of resistance. And in the spirit of worshiping together this morning, I invite you to rise in body, mind, or spirit, wherever you are, to join in singing number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me. And the words will be on the screens and in the gray hymnals.
I'd like to invite Parker to come on up and light our chalice, please. Thank you, Parker. Yeah. This is something we do every single Sunday, and anytime you go to a UU service, you will do this. The words that we share are in your bulletin. Sorry. We gather together in a spirit of love, with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another.
How many of y'all recognize this? Who had one? Who had the one that had even more crayons in it? And if you're like me, when you were in school, you often would be called upon to draw a self-portrait, right? And you probably reached for this crayon right here. Peach, for the skin tone, right? And if you're like me, maybe you thought, well, that doesn't quite look like me. So today's story is about true story, about a little girl who about 6 or 7 years ago said the same thing. That doesn't look like me at all. And she set out to do something about it. So today's story is More Than Peach, Changing the World One Crayon at a Time, by Bellin Woodard, illustrated by Fannie Leem. Rise and shine, sunshine, is my wake-up call. But just for a moment, my eyes cling to last night's dreams, not yet ready to leave them behind. My mornings are filled with smiles and a bump here and there. We rush in the busyness that morning brings. Being with my brothers is sort of like gazing into a mirror. Their faces reflect mine, shades of the world with the same warm and curious eyes. I sigh when I wave goodbye. My brothers' reflections disappear and leave only me. But just one me is more than enough, and I make so much of it. Sometimes we might trip up, but we have friends to catch us. School is a home away from home. And when at home, we learn to grow. Does anyone have the skin color crayon? My friend asks. Some call it the skin color crayon. I've heard it many times before, but this time when I pass the peach-colored crayon to him, something in me feels different. Can someone pass me the skin color crayon? Another friend asks later. The question rings through the room. This question didn't seem to bother my teachers or my friends. Why was I the only one feeling confused? My mom and I celebrate the day. We share lots of stories and giggles. I also tell her about the skin color crayon language. I explain that even though the question puzzles me, I always pass the peach crayon. Well, our skin color is brown, so next time, why not just hand over the brown crayon instead, Mom says. But that doesn't feel right either. I think for a while, and the idea hits me. No, Mom, instead I'll ask what color they want, because it can be any number of beautiful colors. And so the next time the question rings out, I reply, which one? Skin can be any number of beautiful colors. Oh yeah, I meant the peach color, my friend says. Suddenly I realize that if this friend could understand, maybe my other friends could too. Again and again, I get asked the same question. Again and again, I reply the same way. Gently, knowingly trying to change the language. Until I finally hear an echo. My teacher replies just the way I did. Of course, she says. What color would you like? Because skin tones can be any number of beautiful colors. I had been the spark, and now that my whole classroom was lit up. It's so important that your space is brilliant, just like you. Soon, the new language rippled through the school. If I can make such a big change here, I can also make it happen at other schools. I put my idea to paper, and my family helps me plan. Growing isn't always easy. Change is a team effort. And the bigger your team, the faster change happens. I lead the way and ask my friends, school, and whole community for help. All around the world, the language is changing. Minds are growing, and we will keep going until the whole world knows we're more, much more than peach. We're each. Together, we can show the world the power of kidhood, one crayon at a time. And unfortunately, I don't have any of the brand of crayons, the More Than Peach crayons that young Bellin actually created and started selling and producing. But the effect was so powerful that the biggest crayon manufacturer in the world, Crayola, now sells the colors of the world crayons, the colors of the world colored pencils, and the colors of the world markers. So anyone can find their flesh tone in a crayon. And I'm going to take all my stuff with me.
So Kathy is doing double duty, so I'm going to share the words for our offering this morning. Each week, we set aside a time for giving towards the financial vitality of this community. 25% of the undesignated collection each week goes to one of our community partner organizations. For the month of February, it is Ripple of One. We also collect non-perishable food items for Clemson Community Care Food Bank, and we'll have some of our children and adults helping come around and collect that. You may give online pressing our donate button on the website. I thank you for your generosity today and always. Again, thank you for your generosity. We have another time following immediately after that is a different kind of generosity. A generosity of spirit as you share joys and concerns together, holding them for one another as part of this community. I've asked Kathy if she would place a stone in this bowl representing our shared community for each of the joys and concerns shared today. Have a joy from Kathy that I honor Beth Murray, who recently retired after 30 years with the Church of the Larger Fellowship. Beth created, nurtured, and supported prison ministry through the Pen Pal program, with several UUFC members participate. This good program continues thanks to Beth Murray. Have a concern from Mike Cole that he will be having a routine surgery this Wednesday and will be in the hospital for a couple of days. I'll be thinking of you and holding you as you go through your surgery. And I don't see a note here, and I hope it's okay to say aloud that Barbara Stroop successfully had surgery this week and is at home recovering from that. Cody offers a joy to thank folks for buying Girl Scout cookies. Yes. Is there still time to buy some if they want them? Okay. Yes. Have a joy and concern. The joy from Holly, or these are both from Holly Ulbrich. The judge, I'm sorry, I can't. Can you? Gave us most of what we asked for. The judge, in the FOIA case, and it is continued. My sorrow is that my beloved sister-in-law, Kay, died yesterday at the age of 81. 91. Okay, 91. Have a joy from Talia that today is her mama, Julia's birthday. Happy birthday. I also want to lift up the joy of having so many people here, some faces that I see on a regular basis and others that we don't see quite as often in person. And so glad to have all of you here. And I would like to also lift up all of those that are hurting right now in light of all that is going on in the world and the dangers that so many face. And finally, offer one more stone to represent all of those joys and concerns that remain quiet and tender upon our hearts this morning. I ask you to pause and just take a couple of breaths for a moment. And now as we transition into singing our children to their religious education classes today with Meg and Karen to go play and learn with Legos. If you will join in singing, Go Now in Peace. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation, maybe relaxing in your seat, closing your eyes, or merely relaxing your gaze. The days that come and carry away your spirit, your spark, bow down, lay your head on the hard earth, and let your brokenness join the death that is stirring there. Life rebels against death, takes the very dust of our bones and renews and reweaves it into glory. We were made for life, and life does not intend to let you go. But rest, you can. Decay and falling away from ourselves are part of the process. If you need to fall apart, then do. For life will hold you in that too. Will teach you how to desiccate and blow away, and then will call you back from the four corners of the earth and will renew you with the water of the tears of each other, who, like you, weep for all that is lost. She will breathe back into you the breath that washes from the mouths of children laughing, from the lion's roar, from the exhalation of trees. You will be reborn in the arms of beloveds, and together we will sing a new song.
I'm glad Martha Alexander is here today because I want to share a little bit about some of the pictures that Martha has put up. Martha does our bulletin boards in the hallway. She puts up pictures that she takes, pictures that Alan takes. There's also a picture that Karen York has taken. One picture comes to mind that I'm not sure who took this picture, but it's two of our members going like this. You recognize this? Star Trek. I want to talk a little bit about Star Trek. Obviously, we have Star Trek fans here at UUFC. Martha documents that on our bulletin board. It comes to mind because of an audiobook I just finished called Hidden Figures. There was also a movie made from this book. I have not yet seen the movie, but if you have plans to watch the movie, let me know, and I'll come join you. But the audiobook was great. It's a story, a true story of 3 African-American women mathematicians. In the book, they were called computers. This was in the 1940s, 1950s. I'm embarrassed. It took me a while to get through a small portion of the book. Oh, computers. Those are the women, because that's how they used the word computers then. Those were the women. And these 3 African-American computers played pivotal exceptional roles at NACA, which is the predecessor of NASA, during the early years of the space program. So in Hidden Figures, a story so much about flight, of course they mention Star Trek. And in particular, there's a story of Lieutenant Nyota Uhura, as played by Nichelle Nichols. Lieutenant Uhura is a polyglot, translator, and communications officer for the Enterprise spaceship, specializing in linguistics, cryptography, and philology. Uhura was an important part of the original series' multicultural crew. And most importantly, she was one of the first Black characters to be portrayed in a non-menial role on an American television series. In Hidden Figures, the book told the story of Nichelle Nichols turning in her resignation to Gene Roddenberry. She did not wish to play Uhura any longer after the first season. She wanted to return to Broadway. Gene Roddenberry said, "Why don't you think about it over the weekend?" So she did. The next day, Nichelle Nichols attended an event. She thinks it was an NAACP fundraiser. Someone came up to her and told her that a Trekkie fan wanted to meet her. She experienced that often. And she turned to see Martin Luther King Jr. walking up to her smiling. He introduced himself to her as her biggest fan. They talked a little bit, and then he became very serious when she shared that she was considering resigning from Star Trek. He essentially told her that she could not do that. Martin Luther King pointed out that for the first time, he said, we are being seen the world over as we should be seen. He told her that Star Trek was the only show that he and Coretta would allow their little children to stay up and watch. Equity, inclusion, diversity. So Nichelle Nichols stayed and traveled through space on the Enterprise. Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson stayed as computers for NASA also. What those women accomplished supports the importance of embracing diversity, challenging bias, and fostering inclusive cultures. When cultural diversity is embraced within an organization, creativity can be enhanced. Innovation and problem solving can be encouraged. Mary Jackson became NASA's first Black female engineer. Diversity, equity, inclusion. It was something that Dave Sanders and I talked about the last couple of weekends. We were together the last couple of weekends. You may have seen our picture together with Michael in this week's weekly. We were doing a Habitat gig. So Dave, we forgot to celebrate this. Dave and Karen, his wife, are in Burnsville, North Carolina with their brand new grandson. So he's not here this weekend. Dave and I had good opportunity to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. Dave's worked with BASF for 32 years, all over the place, not just in Seneca. When his company provided DEI local training to its employees last year, Dave shared with me 6 packets of activities with a notepad and a pen supporting DEI principles. I shared those packets with the 6 Clemson graduate students assigned to my supervision last year. By the way, Clemson University commits to fostering an inclusive environment and to create a sense of belonging for the students, faculty and staff, alumni, and visitors. At Clemson University, this is focused at the Division of Community, Engagement, Belonging, and Access. So Dave and I, during our 2 weekends together, reminisced about sharing those packets and the value of DEI training. He reminded me that diversity is a fact. Inclusion is an act. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I just wanted to mention very briefly that we're going to be showing a video, and because I know that everybody has different hearing abilities, we have printed out, not because I'm asking you to sing along, but a little half sheet. If you got one of those when you got your order of service, it has the lyrics on it, just in case with the volume of the music, it's hard to understand all of the words. You can kind of follow along and see what they are.
They tell you it's your fault if you trust. But there's one thing I know, it's this: opposites do coexist, and the last thing they'll ever kill is the love. The world's on fire and we'll still fall in love. The world's on fire and we'll still fall in love. The world's on fire and we're not giving up. No. Say it's not worth it. Oh, I could give up before we know.
All right, can y'all hear me on this? Good, okay. So I shared this video because it is from a Unitarian Universalist minister named Reverend Aaron Walters from Texas. That's who was singing. And when I came across this video, I thought about using it before, but decided to wait and used it today because it felt fitting in the midst of all that is going on in the world. Beloveds, it has been a hard 2 weeks, and it hasn't even been 2 weeks yet, has it? But these words are part of the reflection that have been coming into my mind over and over again. Yes, the world is on fire, somewhat literally lately. And yet, not but, and yet, I still fall in love. Not in a romantic love, although you might fall in love in a romantic love as well, but a love for this world. There's an old slogan with Universalists believing in universal salvation that is to love the hell out of this world, because they didn't believe in hell. Believed that heaven or hell is what we make of it here on earth. So to love the hell out of this world. And I'm going to continue to show up and to do that. Because even in the midst of it being on fire, there is such diversity and such beauty in the world amongst humans and animals and plants. Everything that surrounds us represents that diversity. As Kathy quoted Dave, diversity is a fact. Equity and inclusion is an act. It requires commitment. It requires supporting that work. Kathy reminded me that this congregation a few years ago signed the Clemson area pledge to end racism. Did I get that all right? Okay, yes, to end racism. And so that's something that a large number of churches and organizations engaged with, and this congregation continued to do some of that work, engaging with Green Sanctuary and the land acknowledgement that we do at the beginning of service, as well as adoption of the 8th principle, which the 8th principle speaks of our spiritual journey towards wholeness, working to greater accountability in dealing with and addressing racism and oppressions in ourselves and our denomination and organizations, communities. And those aren't the exact words, but off the top of my head from memory. And those words were adopted by this congregation. Now, there were a lot of discussions and different feelings about those particular words. And this past year, we had a lot of conversations again about Article 2, which is the part of our large denomination's bylaws. Sounds kind of boring. But in our bylaws, in our documents as a denomination, we have in the past had a series of principles. First, 6 principles, and then it expanded to 7 principles and 6 sources, and then more recently has expanded to value statements with love at the center. Not just any love, but a liberating love at the center of pluralism, interdependence, generosity, justice, equity, and transformation. So there's a little mnemonic that I have in my head that some RE folks are using, which is jet pig. So if you saw me pause there, I had to think about what the next letter was so that I could remember that without looking at my notes. But these words were common in our principles, both the earlier ones written in the 1960s and the more recently adopted principles that many of us learned when we first came to Unitarian Universalism. Now, the thing that I find important and fascinating is that in the new value statements that were voted on at our denomination level 2 years in a row, and in this congregation, the outcome in this congregation was different than what it was at the national level. And that's okay, because that's what congregational polity and being able to make your voices heard is important. And so what was adopted at General Assembly takes the principles from being just theoretical to being aspirational and gives us some clue. It doesn't say you have to do exactly this, that you have to believe every single word, because where UUs, we don't believe in creeds. But it gives us some clues about what we can do to live in to those value statements, to be more truly equitable and inclusive. Our interdependence in the principles talked about the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And in the new value statements, it speaks to us of the interdependence and humanity, the diversity in the world around us, and our accountability, our willingness to repair what we can that is in that language of covenant. And so I want to pause here for a second and say this is not the service that I planned on giving this Sunday. I planned on talking about inclusion and the history of Black Unitarians, Universalist, and Unitarian Universalist, and Humanist within our denomination. And don't worry, I'm planning on talking about that later in the month, but I had this description written for next Sunday. So if any of you are familiar, we use something called Soul Matter Sharing Circle, which has a monthly theme. We use this theme in our covenant groups. We use this theme in our religious education, certain aspects of that are available, and we use it here in our worship services. So that's where the inspiration came from. And then tying that into Black History Month and thinking about equity and inclusion, moving beyond just diversity. And so I wanted to talk about this topic, and y'all, it felt like it was screaming at me that this is the thing that I need to talk about right now, as more and more places are rolling back their diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. So what can we do? I intended to talk more about what we can do in our congregation, and I think that's still really important. However, in light of what is going on in the world, I think we need to look at what we can do outside of just us. So, one really practical thing, okay? Have y'all heard of the companies that are rolling back their commitments to DEI? You have Walmart and Amazon, McDonald's, Target, Lowe's. That one hurt a little bit for me as I was decorating my new house. But I found that Ace Hardware is much better in their DEI practices and who they contribute to. So, alternatives there. But we can pay attention to who those are. People in the Black community, people in the LGBTQ community are calling on people in their communities, but also their allies, to actively boycott some of these organizations. Look for alternatives. Order from somewhere like eBay or directly from the manufacturer instead of going through Amazon. I had to think about this because I was like, well, I have my TV, I have this thing and that thing that are all tied to Prime, and I had to make sure my Fire TV would still work without Prime. But I realized that the renewal of my Audible subscription, which many of you have probably heard me say at least once, that because of my learning disabilities, I really like listening to audiobooks. So I'm going to look at alternatives like Libby or other resources, and I canceled the renewal that was supposed to happen today on my Audible subscription. And while I haven't canceled my entire membership because it's not set to renew until September, and I still got to figure out some things with that, I'm not going to order stuff from Amazon. That's one of the things I'm going to do. I haven't really gone to Walmart very often. Again, Lowe's, that one's going to hurt me a little bit more. But thinking about the organizations that we can withdraw our financial support from is one active thing. Another is for us to create mutual aid communities, continuing to support the organizations that we support with our benevolences and our donations of food, our donations of time, building homes with Habitat for Humanity. These are things that we can continue to do as mutual aid. And we can look at the companies and the organizations that are doubling down on their DEI. If y'all need ice cream, go get Ben & Jerry's because they've doubled down on theirs. Costco. And if you feel like, oh, I can't order that much, I can't get that much from Costco because I'm only one person or I'm only a couple or whatever, there are people that are forming little groups and clusters to share what they get from Costco. And we have Costco only an hour away in Greenville. So think about the companies that we can support that are committed. TJ Maxx is another one that has committed to support, continue support of DEI. And so when we go out into the world, sometimes we have to continue to shop or get things where we do. Maybe you have a pharmacy, like CVS, which has a bad record too, or somewhere else that you have to keep utilizing. But if you can, try to divest from those companies. Be intentional about where you shop. Be intentional about what you order, and maybe support some more local businesses. Work collectively together to support one another, because y'all, there have been executive orders signed, which have been paused, that could impact people's access to food resources through the WIC program, through Medicaid, and other things that can just help our basic survival. And more than ever, we are going to need one another. Support within this community for one another, but also in our wider community beyond these walls, to keep showing up. And another way we can do this is if you see something, say something. Sometimes it doesn't feel safe, but if you see someone being harassed for their identity, whether it is like their gender, their sexuality, their age, their socioeconomic status, their ability or disability, and their needs for access. If you see someone being harassed, say something. Be the person that says that's not okay. And again, you have to think about your own safety. But when we can say something, it's another way that we can continue to show our love in the world. And I want to offer this as grounding for this work. It is not going to be easy. recognizing that the world is on fire and still loving it is not easy. So finding something to ground ourselves, to form of resistance, rest, as you heard from Reverend Ian Hill last Sunday, for those of you that were here. Rest is resistance. Joy is resistance. Speaking out, speaking with your dollars, reaching out to elected officials, those that are resisting and thanking them, and those that are not, and saying, you need to do better. But there's a few songs that go around in my head, and one that we have sung often as a meditation in the last few months. And if any of you have ever heard me say, I don't like singing in front of people where you can hear me, but I'm going to try to be brave and do something. And if you know it, maybe we'll do it a couple of times if I have help. So there's the meditation on breathing. And it invites you to, when I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Thank you for joining me so I wasn't doing that by myself. Okay. But this is something that helps ground me, reminding myself to stop and to breathe in peace, even when it is hard to find. To remember that breathing in peace is a way for me to continue to resist and to breathe out love, because love and compassion are what we need to love the hell out of this world when the world is on fire. I invite you to remember those words or other words that help remind you of what we can do, what we can accomplish in this world, what our faith is and continues to call us to do in this world. I hope that in these days and weeks and months ahead, that you will answer that call of our faith to do what you can, when and how you can, as a form of resistance. That joy, that peace, that hope and love can guide us in the midst of a world on fire. And speaking of a different kind of fire, our chalice is lit every week as a beacon of our faith, a reminder of what we have done, the Unitarian Service Committee, using this image to help people avoid prosecution in Nazi Germany. That's where this image comes from. And I, for one, am not going to let anybody else put it out. My faith, my religion is still protected for right now. And I will continue to fight for one another. And there's so much more I could say today. But I want to remind us that we carry this flame even when it is extinguished in our hearts with us, carrying that light out into the world. And with that light, it's appropriate for our closing song to be one of my favorite. Of this little light of mine. This little light of mine, I am going to let it shine. I'm not just going to see the fires that other people are burning, but I'm going to recognize the fire that is burning within me. hopefully within us as a community of faith. May we continue to support diversity, equity, and inclusion in all of the spaces that we exist in, here in these walls and out into the wider world. May it be so. May we make it so, and blessed be. And now, if you will rise in body, mind, or spirit, wherever you are, to join in singing This Little Light of Mine. Thank you. Oh. May you let your light shine. May it shine forth. Even as we extinguish this flame, may you go forward in peace and return in love, continuing to love the hell out of this world, more now than ever.